Hi everyone, it's your book coach Liisa Kovala here. Grab a cup of coffee and settle in for a discussion about all things writerly. I'm the author of Sister's Winter War and Surviving Stutthof, my father's memories behind the death cave, and I'm an author accelerator, certified fiction, and memoir book coach. As a Finnish Canadian, I also love my coffee. In this podcast, we'll take a coffee break together to chat with authors, publishers, book coaches, marketers, agents, publicists, booksellers, and many others. Welcome to Women Writing. So happy you could join us for a coffee and a chat. Nicole Meier is a certified book coach and author of 4 upmarket novels, including The House of Bradbury, The Girl Made of Clay, The Second Chance Supper Club, and City of Books. Her books have been recognized by Booklist, Refinery29, BookBub, and Popsugar. She hosts the Whole Writer podcast and is the co-founder of Bookworks. She can be found at NicoleMeier.com. Hi, Nicole. How are you?
Hi, it's good to be here. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. It's so lovely to see you. I have come to know you from a distance as a fellow author accelerator coach and on Substack and all the places. I know you have a podcast as well. And so it's just a delight for me to sit down and have a chat with you.
Thank you. Same. I know. I love connecting with other people, especially in that new Substack community where we just all feel more aligned, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you absolutely find those folks who are interested in writing and who are doing the work and who are, soaking up all the knowledge and sharing with each other.
Right.
I just love it. It's so great. So you do a lot of things, and one of those things is you're a writer and a published writer. So I'd love you to tell us a little bit about the kind of work that you write. What genre do you write
Sure.
in and all those things?
Sure. Yes. So I have 4 published books, and I write character-driven upmarket novels. Back in the day, we used to call it women's fiction. I've sort of moved away from that, even though I love women's fiction. I just like to think of it more of upmarket. And so really my stories explore found family, friendships, and community. Really, that's kind of what I focus on.
I love that. And I love the idea. I mean, there's been a lot of chatter about that term women's fiction over the
Mhm.
last, I don't know, a year, 2 years, maybe longer. I don't even know.
Right.
And I guess it started out as a decent umbrella term, but it seems kind of limiting. So I love the idea that you're calling it, you're sort of positioning it as upmarket. Well, what do you think upmarket is? Does it differ from other categories? What might, like if somebody was thinking about,
Hmm.
I don't know what upmarket is, there's so many terms nowadays.
Right. So it's definitely not commercial where you have genre specific books. It's not sci-fi or thriller, suspense, mystery. I love upmarket because you can sometimes interchange it with book club fiction. It does have that nice umbrella of really following a character on their internal journey. And so I do think it's just kind of a nice, like I said, umbrella for those books.
It's perfect. Yeah, great. And you have a book that is, I think, approaching its 1 year book anniversary.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Right. City of Books. That came out last May, believe it or not. I mean, time really flies.
Right?
But that book was loosely based on the famous Powell's bookstore in Portland. I live in the Pacific Northwest. And over the pandemic, I don't know if you know about Powell's, but it takes up a whole city block. It's something like 68,000 square feet. It's famous.
Amazing.
Um, and over the pandemic, they closed and they didn't think they were going to open again. And so I kind of reimagined what if the booksellers, like the staff,
Yeah.
kind of moved in and reopened the store and saved it.
Amazing. I just love that whole concept. First of all, a bookstore of that size, like
Yeah.
that's incredible. I have actually never heard of that, but
Okay.
now it's on the bucket list. I need to go
Yes.
there. And so it closed during the pandemic, but it did actually reopen as a bookstore or
Yeah,
oh,
it did. We didn't think it would because Portland really suffered a lot of hits. There were riots, there was a pandemic, but it came back. So it's really exciting.
oh,
It's been coined the Eiffel Tower of the Pacific Northwest because when people get off the plane in Oregon, it's like, where's Pals? I need to go
I
now.
need to go there first. Oh, book lovers rejoice. They can go to Palace. That is incredible. And what a great concept for a book, right? Just to take that event that's happening and say, okay, what could happen if?
Yeah.
Oh, fun. That's great. So in addition to writing, are you writing
Mhm.
anything right now? Is there
I'm
like a project underway that you can tell us about?
I'm not that. I've told people at my on my book tour last year that that was my last novel. I've really transitioned more and more over the years into book coaching and developmental editing, and I just love it so much.
Right.
So never say never. I might do nonfiction someday, but really that was kind of my bookend, my last novel.
Amazing. And how do you feel about that? Like, are you just like feel relief or are you like a little bit in grief about that? Or are you like, nope, this is good, new era, moving on?
I'm actually really excited. I have been, publishing books since 2016 and I've seen it all. And I just found, I loved it at the time, but I found so much more joy in helping other writers get their books published. And
Yeah.
it's just, it's almost like a relief. It's like, okay, I don't have to do two things at once. I can
Yeah.
just focus on my writers.
That is a good point
Yeah.
because as I'm writing and I'm book coaching, and it is true that there's a real push and pull between your own work and then your client work and juggling
Right.
all the things and all the other things in our lives. But there's so much joy in helping other writers. It's just such
Yeah.
an amazing thing to be able to do. And you're bringing with you all those years of
Mhm.
expertise and knowledge about the book publishing industry and marketing and all
Yeah.
those elements to help writers on their journey, which is incredible.
Yeah. And it's ever changing, as we both know, because we're both
Yeah.
in the industry, is everything that was true for both getting your book into the world, marketing it, getting it published, really feels like it's changed almost 90% since I first
Yeah.
entered the world of book publishing. So it's
Yeah.
constantly evolving.
Yeah, for sure. When you first published the which was your first book? Was it The House of Bradbury? Was that
It
the first
was.
one?
Yeah.
Oh, I also love this concept. Can you share with folks? Because
Yeah.
when I read the blurb about it, I'm like, oh, I have to read this.
That one was another reimagining. So I used to I was born and raised in Southern California. And even though I live in Oregon now, I still read the LA Times religiously. And I remember back in 2014, I think it was, I opened up the newspaper because we got it back then. And it said for, I think, $1.5 million, Ray Bradbury's house could be yours. And he's a iconic author. And what happened, long story short, is that a developer purchased it, a very sort of modern, contemporary design guy bought it. And everyone wanted to be a historical house because Ray Bradbury lived there for 50 years.
Yeah.
And he kind of razed the building in the middle of the night, demolished it all the way to the ground,
Oh,
and without permits and without permission, and just kind
yeah.
of apologized and paid the fine because he knew that was the only way to do it.
Wow.
And so something very, very different came up in its place. So
Mhm.
I reimagined what if another writer moved in and saved the house.
Yes.
And it was just a story that I had no idea I was going to write. But when I did, I felt like that was the story that I needed to come out with.
Yeah.
So,
I love that concept so much.
yeah.
That even just that idea of taking out that what if and reimagining a scenario. I mean, what a great prompt for writers to kind of think about what's happening around them to
Yeah.
get story ideas
Yeah.
and what could have been. And honestly, like that is, I mean, can you imagine if a writer had bought Ray Bradbury's house? Like that would have
I
been
know.
an incredible thing. And I think we would all share what
I
we
know
can
it.
do with fiction, right? Make things a little better.
Yeah.
And I just imagine there must be a lot of interesting energy in that house, right?
Mm,
With all his
absolutely.
books. Oh my goodness, great
Yeah.
idea. And that what book was traditionally published, and so was your second book, I believe. No, the first one was not. Oh,
No.
tell us
Yeah.
because you've
So
had a lot of experiences in different publishing. Um,
yeah, my path is super untraditional, if you will think of it that way. So I wrote a practice novel, which still lives in a drawer. And with that practice novel, I queried agents. I was very green. I didn't have a community. I didn't take classes. I didn't know what I was doing. And um, I didn't, I got all no's clearly from agents. But believe it or not, one agent after 9 months sent me back an email and was almost chapter by chapter of why she was passing and why the book wasn't working. And it
that's
was,
unusual.
oh my gosh, it was the biggest gift I have ever received
Yeah,
that she took the time because she said, I can tell like you have talent, but here's why the actual structure is not
good.
working. And so I put that in, I thanked her. I put that book in a drawer. Almost immediately I discovered the Ray Bradbury article and I said, "Oh, this is the book. I'm going to really do it right."
Yeah.
So because I had had that querying experience with the practice novel, I knew it was going to take forever and a day to get an agent. So I just went straight to someone had at the exact same time had introduced me to the owner of Spark Press and She Writes Press, which is run by all women. It's a hybrid. I
Mhm.
met the publisher and it just felt like an instant yes for me.
Yeah.
So I kind of bypassed querying that book and I just published it with a hybrid, which is for people that don't know, it takes the world of self-publishing and traditional publishing and marries it. So
Yeah.
I put some skin in the game, the publisher put some skin in the game, but the
Mhm.
very crucial part there is it still has traditional distribution. So libraries, bookstores, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Amazing.
Um, yeah. So I published The House of Bradbury with the hybrid. And because I got nice press from that book, I had two literary agents come to me and offer representation. I
Amazing.
went I went with one, and then my next, she got me a 2 book deal with Lake Union for so my middle 2 books are
Okay.
traditional. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's an unusual story, not in the sense um that you went for hybrid, because I think a lot of folks, especially early on, like I chose self-publishing initially too, it's a
Yeah.
lot less time.
Yeah.
It's and as anyone who's queried knows, that's a long journey. It can take months and years to
Yeah.
query and lots of rejection. And then I love the hybrid option because you get support and you get somebody there helping you through that process, but also like everyone's in it together, right? You're just
Yeah.
not they want you to succeed, you want you to succeed, so everyone's pulling the same direction. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions about hybrid publishing right now. Folks aren't sure if it's legitimate. It kind of goes back to when we used to call self-publishing vanity presses, right?
Right.
Remember that era when
Yeah.
vanity presses were like, oh, anyone can publish
Right.
anything and it's terrible. And obviously that's not the case anymore. And self-publishing is really a legitimate
Right.
form of publishing. I think hybrid's kind of in that moment too, where um not everyone understands it or what's
Yeah.
happening there. So what might be some of the reasons somebody might look into hybrid publishing, say over self-publishing, which I think we're more familiar with?
Right. I'm so glad you brought that up because what we all know, you and I know, and people in the industry, is that not every press, not every hybrid, not every publisher is created equal. So, whatever your path you decide to do your due diligence.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of distribution do they have? Is it ebook only or are they in the bookstores? Do they have a sales force? What do their covers look like? What does the contract look like? Talk to other authors and ask them, are you happy with this experience or not? And that will tell you.
Yeah.
I do believe that there are a handful of hybrids out there that are not worth their salt. They definitely don't even, I remember talking to somebody at one point and I said, well, I'm writing, women's fiction. What other authors do you represent? And he said, oh, we don't categorize book by genre. We just put it out. And it's like, okay, that's that's a big red flag.
That's a problem.
So do your due diligence, but I would say, know what you want, know what your goals are. I didn't necessarily know my goals in the beginning, but now I do. I love having a little bit of creative control. I love knowing how it's going to get to market and me having a hand in that.
Mhm.
I am kind of, I know enough to be dangerous where I can do a lot of my own marketing. I think that that's a big thing is if you're like, I don't want to do marketing or I don't even know the first thing about creating an author platform, I would say hold off
Mm.
because you do have to do a significant amount of sort of hustle on your own.
Right.
But yeah, I loved it. So
Yeah.
my press was Spark Press, and then they married with She Writes Press, and they have since kind of gone their own ways as of like a month ago. So
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like you like I say there's so much misinformation out there and confusion, but there's so many great opportunities for folks with hybrid publishers that I think it's worthwhile exploring, especially if somebody's maybe tried the traditional path or maybe has tried the self-publishing path and wants something a little bit different from both of those things. So when you went with the traditional publisher for those middle 2 books, how was your experience different? Like, was obviously some things are going to be the same, like, but there are other aspects I'm sure that were
Yeah.
maybe more challenging or maybe eased the burden. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Wildly different.
Yeah.
So, and again, not every publisher is created equal. So, with mine, I realized very quickly I was a small fish in a big pond. I had editors change, leave houses, change jobs, whatever on me without warning. And so then someone else inherited me. I didn't pick her. She didn't pick me. We loved each other, but it's different when someone buys your book and says, I can't wait to help you get this. She was like, she was just scrambling, starting her new job. And that happens quite a bit with big houses. I did not necessarily have creative control. So there was a fight over the title, there were fights over the cover, but they have an amazing distribution. They have amazing savvy teams.
Mm.
They're all for books, which is amazing. So good and bad. And I'm super upfront about that with any author that asks me is it's never greener on the other side. There are pros and cons to every publishing path and every way you're going to choose. There's going to be good and bad.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think that's something that's so important that we don't always think about, especially for we have a book and we just want it out in the world and we just want it published. Uh, the relationship behind that is so important, and that
Yeah.
the connection you have with whoever you're working with, because it's your book baby,
Yeah.
and and you want somebody to champion it, you want somebody
Yeah.
to love it, you want to feel like the time and effort and the all of it is going to be worth it, but that relationship with even an editor is so important.
Yeah.
And it can be hit or miss, right? You could have an editor that you think is amazing and you work really well with, and somebody else who maybe is less interested or less, or at least feels like they're not as invested, even though they might be. Yeah, I think those relationships are key.
Yeah.
So
And I have friends who are with big traditional who have amazing relationships with their editor and the team. So I've seen, beautiful experiences on that side for
yeah,
sure.
absolutely. So you had two published, traditionally published, and then you pivoted back to, was it hybrid again for the
Yeah.
most recent one, the one that's whose anniversary is
Yes.
here. So that was another big decision, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it
Pause on
was.
that one and say, what should I do here? Or what did you know
Yeah.
immediately what you wanted to do?
I knew a few things. I knew in my heart this was my last novel. And so I really felt like I want to do it my way. I want to bookend it and go back to how I began with the hybrid. I want creative control. I also, this book is about indie bookstores. And so it was really important to me not to necessarily stay with Amazon, who owns Lake Union, who my books were with, because they are not about indie bookstores. And so it was a decision made on content of the book. It was a decision made on this is my final. I want to bookend it my way. And also, I had had such a lovely experience.
Mm,
So yeah, I went back to hybrid.
amazing. Well, and I don't know that the hybrid, had it changed from the first time you did it? Because that's
Mm,
almost 10 years, not quite, but
yeah.
was that another different experience? Was there a big learning curve, or was it pretty much going back into it and going, oh yeah, I recognize this. I know what I need to do. I know what they're doing.
Yeah, I totally recognized it. A few things had changed. So my specific hybrid, their distribution was purchased by Simon and Schuster, so that was exciting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I knew what to do. Um, I kept some of my rights and had my agent sell rights separately for me, which was really fun. And yeah, it was just a fun way to do it. I think if I was really thinking I've got 10 more books in me and I have a very specific path, I probably would have gone a different way.
Mm,
But because I knew this was my sort of final, I just was really happy doing it the way that felt right
yeah.
to me.
I think that's such an important message for folks who are thinking about their long-term goals, that
Mm.
there's no one right way to do this. It's just your
Yeah.
way, and you can change your mind. And if
Yes.
you were the traditional, you don't have to be for the next one. Like there's so many hybrid authors, as opposed to presses that have done traditional and self and hybrid, and depending on the book, depending on the market, depending on what their needs are. Like we really have a lot of choice, like in a way that previous authors did not. Like
Yeah.
it's quite freeing, actually.
Yes, it really is. And I've seen you probably see this too as more and more authors are saying, okay, well what worked for one title doesn't necessarily work for another title. And I have author friends who have some self-published, some traditional, and they kind of decide where they want to go depending on that season of their writing career.
Yeah. And I imagine as a book coach, having done the hybrid and understanding that whole mode of publishing, has that been really helpful for working with clients too, who are sort of
Yeah.
thinking about that option?
It has. And like I said, I'm super transparent with all of my clients and tell them pretty much the real of my whole experience from, soup to nuts, right? From querying all the way through marketing. So I do feel like that is relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and there's, I work with a lot of authors who, I think the first time authors, at least it was my experience too, is you're just so focused on writing the book. Like you're learning
Yeah,
how to write a book, you're learning craft, you're learning how to structure. You're so focused on writing that all the other aspects that as book coaches we kind of understand that, okay, we need to get a platform, we need to be on social media, we
right.
need to think about who our ideal reader is and where this is going to be published and all the things. You as the author, you're just like writing a book. Like
Yeah.
it's hard to imagine where
Yeah.
this is going to land. So I think having
Yes.
that experience as a book coach and being able to talk to that and let people know what their options are, even if they're not ready to make a decision, at least that they're kind of, okay, these are legitimate things I could do with this piece, depending on what their goals are. Because not everybody need, they're not necessarily wanting to be a best-selling author. They want their book out for their family or their friends, or to have done, that goal that they had set for themselves, or whatever reason they're publishing, or to
Right.
get their story out, or to teach people about some aspect of business, or whatever that goal is. So,
Right.
yeah,
Great point. Yeah.
yeah. So I wanted to ask you what about your sort of creative journey even before your first book. Were you
Okay.
always a writer from when you were a child, or was that something that came later in life?
Yeah. I think I was always a writer. I mean, I majored in creative writing in
Oh,
college.
okay.
I think that, well, I actually shouldn't say I think. I know that what held me back from really going full force. I mean, I left college and started interning for magazines and things like that. But in my heart, if I was brave enough, which I wasn't,
Yeah.
and if I didn't have sort of imposter syndrome, I would have really like moved to New York and just start writing and go for it. But I had that imposter syndrome, like I wasn't cool enough or edgy enough or talented enough. So I pivoted from working for magazines and then I went into advertising. And so I worked for ad agencies for years. And then I had kids, family, and it was coming up on my 40th birthday. And I thought, if I don't finish a manuscript, I don't care what happens to it. If I don't finish that by the time I'm 40, I will regret this. So that's what I set out to do.
Yeah, that resonates so much. And I think a lot of people it'll resonate,
Yeah.
that idea of wanting to write even as a young person and choosing another path that maybe felt safer or felt
Right.
whatever it is. Like I'm not sure what it is about writing that do we romanticize it, or do we
Mm.
think of it as only for some people, or
Right.
kind of put it like, I mean, so many people tell me, well, I'm not a writer, but like,
Yes.
and meanwhile they're writing all the time, but like, I'm not a writer, like somebody is going to rubber stamp them and say, yes, you are, like somehow there's this permission needed. And I think as young folks, often that's the case, right? We don't just go for it. We sort of
Yeah.
second guess ourselves and take a safer path. But it sounds like your path gave you so many great experiences that I'm sure help you now. Like, I mean, that advertising background
Yeah.
must have been like, must be coming in uh into your regular practice now, like the stuff you've learned then. What is it about marketing that you learned then that is beneficial to your business now? Everything.
Wow. Yeah. Marketing has changed so much.
Right.
Yeah, advertising has changed so much. I would say, it's always important to be forward facing, and that goes to all the writers out there, whether you're introvert, extrovert. A lot of us sort of want to hide behind the words, and that's fine. If that feels good to you, that's okay. But what people like is if there's some sort of forward facing element. So, share, if you don't want to share all of your life, maybe share two things about the books you love and the bookstores you visit, or what kind of story you're writing, or be forward facing in some aspect because that's how you draw people in. That's how they feel like you're not holding them at arm's length.
Yeah.
And I think that I've carried that with me, even though all of the things about marketing advertising have changed since, gosh, so long ago that I worked in the industry,
Yeah.
is that still holds true, is be forward facing in at least one or two elements.
Mm.
Otherwise, people won't feel like they can connect at all.
Yeah. That goes right back to what we were talking about earlier, the connection with people, whether
Yeah.
it's in a publishing industry or your editor or whoever it is. It's the same with the people who might read your books. I think I love what Dan Blank says about marketing because it feels more like just connecting with folks.
Yes.
And actually, that's what we all just want, isn't it? Like we
Yeah.
just want to be heard and seen and understood. And I agree with you that forward facing, like a lot of folks don't want to have their face on video, or they don't want to
Right.
be in a reel or even a photograph of
Yes.
themselves on social media. But
Yeah.
that's us. Like it's human.
Yeah.
It's all our flaws, and I think that's how people connect to us because we're just human beings. There's nothing um
Right.
super special. It's that we're just doing the work, and again, you like our books or you don't like our books, but
Right.
um I don't know, it's that human connection over, oh, here's another post with some great images that feel a little
Yeah.
bit cold.
Yeah. And you don't have to show your face if you don't want to. I mean, maybe it'd be nice a couple times a year.
Yeah, right.
But,
Yes.
I'm thinking of somebody I follow even on Substack, and I've never seen the person behind the account, but it's all of his dogs. And
Oh,
he shares such an amazing story every time he
yeah.
posts. It's like, I do feel connected because
Yes.
he's drawing me in that way. So
Yeah.
there are so many ways to do
Yeah.
it.
Something personal, something that
Yeah.
like connects us in a human way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so great. I love
Yeah.
that. So, can we talk a little bit about your book coaching? Because I think
Sure.
it's so fascinating that you've had this career as an author and you have decided, and I love that
Yeah.
it's a decision. I've decided
Yeah.
that was my last book. There's something really kind of beautiful about that. Like it must have been sort of a moment of this is it, and I've put
Yeah.
everything into it's like maybe deciding to have your last child. Okay, this is the
Yeah.
one. And although never say never, like you said,
Right.
sometimes
Yeah.
there are surprises. But yeah, so you pivoted to just book coaching.
Yeah.
And so what does a day in a coach life for you look like these days? Because I know you're busy and you've got a lot of
Yeah.
irons in the fire.
Yeah. It looks different depending on the season. And I bet you feel the same way too. There are certain seasons when writers out there are just sort of in the iteration phase, the generative phase. And then there's some seasons where they're like, I have got to get this sucker polished and query. So they are like racing to get those edits. So right now we're in spring when we're recording this. And this is when people are starting to fill up my calendar for the edits. So I'm doing a ton of developmental edits and I do partials, I do fulls. So my weeks are kind of spread about what manuscripts am I reading? When am I having calls to go over feedback?
Mhm.
And then some of my time is just with clients on very short, 1 hour sort of strategy calls of, look, I'm feeling stuck, or what should I do about this publishing path? Or, I'm really stuck on how to even begin. So I think I have a nice little variation of what people are looking for right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
Do you work in any particular genre? Like there are some book coaches who work
Mhm.
in just like, I don't know, science fiction or
Yeah.
thriller. Like are you more generalized in terms of the clients that you work with?
Yeah, I mean, I started out very niche and I love that. But what I'm realizing is that I do like the variety because I read a variety. What I don't read, I don't edit. So I am not huge into spec fiction, sci-fi, or horror. So I don't really edit those books.
Yeah.
What my sweet spot is anything that falls under that sort of upmarket umbrella. Plus, lately, for some reason, I've been doing a ton of thrillers. So that's been
Okay.
fun. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I think that's wise, especially if you don't read in this genre. It's
Yeah.
like for sure we have things to say about story. Story is story, story.
Sure.
But if it's not your genre, it's harder to pick up the things that
Right.
we don't maybe know as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's great that you're reading a variety, because I think it's fun for us to
Yeah.
read a variety of manuscripts. Like every time I
Yeah.
have a new one, I'm like, oh, it's so fun. Like there's so many
Yes.
new things, and it just keeps us like on our toes too. Like it's
Yeah.
really a great experience to have a variety of things happening.
Yes.
The sense,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. And you have a podcast as well.
I do.
So tell
Yes.
us about the podcast.
Yeah, the podcast is a little over a year old, and it started out with a name, and then I changed the name most recently. It's now called The Whole Writer.
Love that.
So what I started out was an intention to just help people with very easy ways to approach writing. So it was really craft based. And
Yeah,
then I realized that my focus was changing within my work, and my work with clients is not just helping them strengthen their manuscript. I am really helping them focus on the person behind the manuscript, the writer. And so I changed the name very recently to The Whole Writer because that's what I've been doing. And I wanted the name of the podcast to reflect that.
I love that. I love the idea of the whole writer, and that's the work of book coaching. I think is it's not just about the manuscript. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember being a very new writer and working with I was taking courses at University of Toronto, and I was working with Alison Latta on my first book. And there were moments where she just talked me off the ledge. Like
Yes.
there's like a real emotional roller coaster. It's not,
Yeah.
there's the pages and the work, and then the person behind it who's feeling all the feelings about,
Yeah.
like you said, imposter syndrome and all the emotional things that come with writing, and even that come with writing um after having wanting to do it for so long and finally doing
Yes.
it. Like it just, you're bringing a lot of things to the table, even though
Yeah.
we say, oh, we're just talking about the book, but we're actually, it's not. I love the idea of the whole writer. um
Yeah. I mean, I work, you may have this experience, I'm not sure, but I have worked with so many different editors on my own work in the past. And I cannot tell you how many had zero bedside manner
yeah,
and they were not interested in anything beyond
yeah,
writing notes in the margins of the pages. And
right,
when I started this business, I said, I'm not going to be that person.
no,
And I love that my clients can call me. I've had two recently that are like, look, I got an offer from an agent, or should I go with this certain publisher? And they call me at
yeah,
any time and say, could you just talk to me for 5 minutes about if I'm making the right decision? And I love being that person for
yes,
them.
yeah. And don't we all want that? I mean,
Yeah.
it's what you need, somebody in your life who you can have those really honest conversations with, who understand it. I mean, I always use this example, so people have heard it before, but I mean, my husband's super supportive of my writing. He's like, there's, he gives me time. Like there's no, friction about writing, and he's happy to listen to me talk about writing.
Yeah.
And we go for a walk, and I tell him da da da, and I'm working out the story problem, and blah, 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 and he nods, and he might even
Sure.
respond, but like he doesn't know. Like,
Totally.
thank you for listening, but also not helpful. But when you're
Totally.
speaking to somebody who has done the work, who has published, who has navigated it, it's there's a whole other level of intimacy about the book and about what
Absolutely.
you're going through. They just get it. And that is a beautiful thing, whether you have a group of writers around you, or I don't know, we have a writers guild here, so we meet regularly, and there's lots of
Oh, it's
folks who can
great.
connect, and however you can find community, that
Yeah.
I think is amazing. But that book coach relationship with their client is so
Mhm.
special, and
Yeah.
like it's hard to describe. Like
Yes. Well, you know firsthand, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. It's a little bit of magic when it's
it
going,
is.
just
It is.
and that somebody trusts you with their words. Like that they,
Yeah.
that's a really special thing, because especially as new writers, it's hard to let
Mhm.
anyone read your work, let
Absolutely. It's
alone
so vulnerable.
so vulnerable.
Mhm.
Um, as you started writing, through each book, did you find your approach to your books changed over time? Did you find
Mm.
more confidence, or was every book just like a brand new new challenge, starting again?
I think a little of both.
Yeah,
I it a little of both of the process and how I write and my story,
yeah,
right? So I started out as a pantser, my first book. My
Right.
second two, I had to be very methodical with outlines because that's what my publisher wanted. And then my fourth book was sort of meeting everything in the middle, a little pantsing, a little plotting.
Yeah.
And then the way that I could settle into my own voice as a writer has definitely grown.
Mhm.
But really, what I tell people is that it's about the intention behind the story. My first book was my most amateur writing, but I still have people tell me to this day it's their favorite. And I know why. It's because I had so much joy when I was writing
Oh,
that I feel like the energy came through.
I love that.
And then a few books in the middle I loved, but I also had, some background push and pull where, editors came and went and it wasn't that same joy. It was a different kind of
Yeah.
joy.
Mhm.
And so I know that the intention behind the work is everything.
That is, I love that. I think because I'm there right now, I'm sort of pivoting.
Okay.
I've been writing historical fiction and I will still probably write historical fiction, but for the moment, I'm taking a little pause. Like I have a one manuscript that I'm working on and I have a research trip coming up. So I'm kind of let it aside for now. And I'm going to come back to it. It's not gone, but I'm sort of pivoting to cozy mysteries and it's
Mm,
joy-filled writing. Like I can't even tell you. And I don't know if people understand that, but I love that you said you felt the joy in it
yeah.
because there can be such joy in writing. And
Yeah.
the historical fiction, while I love doing it, is a little bit heavier, a little darker, a little bit more
Okay.
about themes that are
Okay.
loss and grief and various things. So
Mm,
although I love it,
yeah.
this cozy mystery is just like light and
Oh,
delightful. And so when you say it shows up on the page, I think it probably does.
yeah, it
I think
does.
it probably does.
It does.
And that's really, and I think that's good permission for folks to try different genres too.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
you don't have to pigeonhole yourself into one genre. You can try different things and see what it is that fills you up. And maybe at different times it's going to be a different kind of book. Like you might write
Yeah.
thriller one day and then, 2 years later you're into the romance. I don't know, like whatever it
Yes.
is. So
Yeah.
there's so many opportunities for writers to learn and grow and change. Um, so if a writer was just starting their journey, maybe they're working on an early draft
Yeah.
or they're just have those ideas and
Mm.
want to get started. What kind of advice do you have for them for, I mean, you talked about pantsing, you talked about plotting and that kind of middle ground. And I
Right.
think we all
Right.
find ourselves there and maybe changing our minds about those things. What do you suggest a new writer or somebody who's just in the beginning of their journey?
Mm.
Would they approach this
Yeah.
book writing?
Yeah. And I'm sure you have great advice on this too. I would say the thing that you can do is tell yourself almost every writer you've ever heard of, their first draft of their very first book is a disaster.
Yeah.
And so approach how you're going to start writing as if no one is looking over your shoulder. Just get the words on the page. And I wouldn't say do that for, 350 pages, but I would do that for sure for the first three chapters. And then be proud of yourself, celebrate that you did that. If you need to take some courses online or in person, do that because you do need to learn story structure. But know that the most beautiful, important part is in the revising and reshaping. And there are always room for revisions.
Mhm.
And if you need to get some help from a book coach or an editor or a critique partner, but just know that you're allowed to just be a disaster in the beginning if you want, and no one's going to judge that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that. Well, it's just, and it's freeing, isn't it, to be able
Yeah.
to just write it and let it be terrible. And I think that the if you as a writer can just embrace that
Mhm.
part of the revision and like rewriting, if you
Yeah.
start to love that part,
Yes.
oh, it makes your life so much better, right? Because
Yeah.
so many folks I just want to get it right the first time and it's got to be perfect. And they keep
Yeah.
going back to revise that early chapter that it's the
Hmm.
first draft, let it be. Like you'll fix it later.
Totally.
But they get stalled because they're just going back and forth on those early pages.
Right.
If you can just like you say, get that first draft done and then embrace that revision process,
Mhm.
it's fun. You see
Yeah.
that manuscript
Yeah.
grow and change and
Yeah.
develop and become something that you didn't expect.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I love your advice about finding places to learn, whether that's courses or
Mhm.
webinars. Like, I don't know that the average reader understands what goes behind learning how to
Right.
write a book.
Mhm.
And there's so much learning to do. Like, we would never ask, somebody to take one class and then do brain surgery. Like, it's just not happening.
Absolutely.
Here, fly this plane. You've had a weekend course.
Yes.
Not
Or even
happening.
run a marathon, right?
Right?
No one would ever,
Yes.
I mean, some people do, but most people train before they actually run the real
Yeah.
marathon.
Because if you don't, it's going to hurt.
Yeah. And it's
It's going to hurt.
injury. And yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's so much to be said for finding a community of writers
Yeah.
and like you say, whether it's a critique partner that you trust or a book coach or whatever that looks like. It's if I think of any given book I've written over the years, there's always like a group of people behind it, really, between
Absolutely.
editors and other writers and beta
Yeah.
readers and whether it's
Yes.
publishing folks or whatever it is, like there's a team.
Right. It is. That's so true. And I always say these days, look, it's kind of passe to write in a silo. Nobody works alone
Yeah,
anymore.
it's really
You
true.
get help, you get a writing friend, you get a coach, you get a group, go to the local library. There's so many ways to get support.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of writers are innately introverted. And so
Yes.
that's not our first go-to is like, oh, I need a
Right.
group of people. But actually,
Right.
what you're going to meet is a group of people who are probably also introverted. And you
Totally.
find your group, like you find your tribe.
Yeah, your group could be just going to the library for author events and sitting in the back and listening, but
Yeah,
those same people keep showing up to those events and you don't know it, but that's your group and you haven't spoken at all,
it's
but
true.
that's your group,
It's
right?
true. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very, very true. It's powerful. So as you're moving forward now in your book coaching journey, do you have uh, a vision of what that's going to look like, or is you've
Mm.
kind of settled into your because you've been doing it for several years now, so you have a groove and you have a
Yeah.
focus. Do you have any big plans for the future, or is it continuing to do the amazing things you're already doing?
It's continuing on, which I love, but gosh, this summer I started another project with a friend. So we co-founded something called Bookworks,
Nice.
and that is really helping authors build their author platforms without stress, and it's helping them have a good strategy for pitching agents. So I'm doing both right now. I'm doing
Amazing.
Nicole Meier book coaching, and I'm doing Bookworks.
I think that's incredible. I feel like the whole book marketing aspect of writing a book
Yeah.
is a real challenge, whether you're at the beginning of this journey or whether you are established and you have another book coming out or wherever you are. What are some of the key things we should be doing maybe sooner than later?
Yeah. One thing that sounds incredibly intimidating, but really is low stakes, way more low stakes than people give it credit for, is to start a newsletter.
Mhm.
And that could be literally to three people: your mom, your grandma, and your neighbor.
Yes.
Start a newsletter. And because there's power in saying, hey guys, guess what? I'm a writer. There's
Mhm.
so much power in claiming that for yourself and having that newsletter, even if it comes out like you want to start, oh, it's just coming out quarterly. It doesn't matter. Hey, if you want to hear about the books that I'm loving right now, plus a little bit of inspiration about the book I'm writing. And then before you know it, that newsletter grows from three people to five people, and then five people to 10 people because your grandma said, oh my gosh, my whole block is on a book club and they'd love to be part of your newsletter. I mean, just start now because there's power in that and community is everything.
Yeah, that's great advice. And we're both on Substack, but there are lots of other platforms for building a newsletter. But Substack is a free platform, which I think not everyone understands. That as writers, is amazing, and there's community even inbuilt there. And I didn't understand. I guess I didn't really understand the power of a newsletter when I was starting out, and I think I had a quarterly newsletter that once every season I put out a little newsletter with updates. And I wouldn't say I had a ton to talk about in those early days, but there was something to say in each of those. But I realize now I could have built a bigger newsletter
Mm,
had I been more consistent and posted
yeah.
more regularly. And now I get it, but I know, my past self 10 years, 12 years ago, 15 years ago. So any writers out
Right.
there, go do it. Do it
Right.
now. It will make your life easier later. And it's fine. Like you can make it, make it your own thing. It's your
Yeah.
way of sharing with folks too. And it doesn't have to be lengthy. But yeah,
Yeah.
the newsletter list is way more powerful than any um I think than any, Facebook post even.
I
They probably
agree.
don't reach in the same way.
They don't reach at all.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of thinking about where we can spend our energy and
Yeah.
focus and what's going to work well. So I am delighted to chat with you because you know all kinds of things about all the publishing industry and
Oh,
writing and book coaching, and it's such a delight.
thank you.
So remind us where we can find you
Sure.
online.
Yeah, so I'm at NicoleMeier.com. And then on Substack, I'm at Nicole Meier Writes. And then the podcast you can listen to is The Whole Writer.
The Whole Writer. I love it. Thank you so much, Nicole. It was such a delight
Thank
to
you.
chat with you.
Thank you. I loved it, Lisa.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Thanks. Thank you to everyone for joining me for the Women Writing Podcast Season 1. We'll return in September for Season 2. In the meantime, I hope you enjoy some of our fan favorite re-releases from this season. Have a great summer. Thanks for taking time out of your schedule to have a coffee break with us at Women Writing. Don't forget to subscribe to Women Writing on Substack. If you like this episode, share it with someone who needs a writing break and a little inspiration. Happy writing! Thank you to Michael Jensen for his original music and editing, and to Mia Jensen for the logo design.